You're listening to Scribble Talk, a podcast for bid and proposal professionals. My name is Baachu, and with my co-host,
Ashley Case,
we will be sitting down with our industry veterans to share their journey, discuss their career, and learn how to make an impact in the industry. Today's guest is Mark Whitley. Mark would love to pretend he is some sort of polymath, but most likely he prefers to dabble or has a curious mind. With degrees in physics and optical electronics, he embarked on a first career in lasers and optics, including manufacturing, purchasing, sales, and marketing. With a desire to explore other areas, he used business school to bounce into telecommunications and broadcasting solutions for a variety of sectors, and there discovered the joy of bidding, proposal, and capture. He is now intrigued by innovation funding and how work is won in that environment, as well as rediscovering how integral this profession is to business success. A bit of a serial volunteer, Mark has had stints with Institute of Engineering of Technology, IET, Warwick Business School, as an alumni board member, and more recently as a mentor. His kids' primary school has chair of the governing body and is rugby coach at his son's club. He has arranged few chapter events for APMP over the years and also mentors for them. Welcome, Mark, to Scribble Talk. Great to have you with us.
Fantastic to hear you guys.
Yes, Mark. Let's go back to the very beginning, Mark. Where were you born and your high school and education?
Okay. I was born in Bellshill in Scotland. It was the nearest maternity hospital to East Kilbride where my parents lived. So that's Lanarkshire. And then lived, as my parents did, in East Kilbride, and went to the local primary school, Blacklaw, Scottish for kind of a Black Hill, and then Claremont High School, a kind of like local state secondary school, both of which were in walking distance of my parents' home.
Got it. So how was it going to school in Scotland during, and is it 1960s, 70s? 80s?
Yeah. I mean, I was born in 1965. Let's not be kind of like coy about my age or anything, but so 60s, 70s. No, it was fantastic. I think there was a summer in the 70s when we all ended up almost sunburnt, but most time it's a bit of a mixture of chilliness and playing football outside. But it was great to just walk there, primary school to and from my mum and dad's house, and being able to have lunch there. Decent sort of science labs, but also a bit of kind of musical productions at school. I played rugby and football there as well. So no, it was quite a good old time. And my dad's work again was just down the road, so he was always able to walk from home, and typically came home for lunch from his place of work.
Nice. School and higher education, at what point did you decide I want to get into optical electronics and other sort of technical education?
So I kind of immediately after secondary school, high school, I went off and did a degree at physics at Glasgow University. Glasgow's got a great reputation for a few things, and one of them was actually gravitational waves, which I didn't go into, but the thing that excited me most was lasers. Applied around the place and ended up with a job in the Midlands in Rugby in Warwickshire for a company called JK Lasers, as it turns out, and got my first job there as a laser test engineer. Basically manufacture at the kind of end of the production bit, where you put all the optics into the system and made sure that it actually did what was required before it went out the door to the customers. Built on that a bit though, so I first did that laser test engineer stuff, then looked to do a bit more commercial things. So I started to explore what was possible, and had a stint as a buyer. So I was looking after buying all of the optical components that went into the lasers that were made at that site, sourced from all over the world. And then, having bought those, ended up working for one and then another of the suppliers that I previously bought from, buying optics and other components. And that's how I did. That was the laser thing before I went on to the MBA bit. And that was probably segues into the proposal world a bit. I guess I decided I wanted to explore maybe some different sectors, build up my business skills even more. So I did the MBA thing at Warwick Business School. I moved into the telecommunications and broadcasting sector that was described in my initial bit, and bounced into kind of a 19 years career in that sector.
Wow. I'm sure coming from an electronics background, there was some relevance of your management that you could apply to telecoms, right? Was there any memorable experience or any projects that you did in that sector for 19 years?
Oh, right, yes. So just the context there is it was 19 years, ultimately it was Arqiva. So there was lots of interesting acquisitions and mergers that kind of resulted in that kind of final sort of name of the company that I got to. And interesting projects, certainly there were interesting proposal and bid ones I could talk about. The Crown Castle, in fact, I think the initial thing that got me into proposals was that we were looking after the first digital terrestrial television network, and it kind of failed, and the regulator, Oftel, I think it was at that point, decided that they needed people to bid to keep that network going. And that was my first exposure to public sector procurement. And that was important because we ended up with this consortium of, I think it was BBC, Sky, and what was Crown Castle, to basically keep digital terrestrial television alive in the UK. So that was a bit of a win. I think another interesting thing was hold separate. This was less fun. This was where National Grid Wireless was being merged with Arqiva, which pre-existed. And actually, we were part of the business that wasn't really allowed to do anything that would have been jeopardized by the merger of the two businesses. And we basically had to kind of constantly tell the regulator that we were behaving ourselves and not going against the whole separate arrangement. So that was a non-bidding thing, but it was an interesting sort of project to be involved in. And Arqiva itself, quite a lot of the stuff I did was mobile network operator related, and we did some stuff which was trying to help deploy sites into the back of beyond to give coverage in rural areas, the mobile infrastructure project. So that was exciting, and we kind of bid for and won that. And the last probably real bidding one I did before I left was something called ESMCP, which was where the government was bidding to replace the existing emergency services provision in the UK, the airwave network, and move it on to a different cellular solution. And we were involved in that, which was a kind of multi-dimensional and fun old project to be involved in.
Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot to take there. And at what point of your career did you switch from telecommunications into capture bids and proposals?
So it was actually pretty much right at that beginning. So I never, when I left the Warwick and went to kind of Arqiva, I never actually did anything technical there. And it was all kind of a business thing. I was one of a group of people brought in as, I think the word was business office. So they brought you in as consultants to look at businessy areas and have a bit of a play and see if there was an area that you would like to work in. So I never did anything technical while I was there, though, as you remember, I had the technical background, which maybe helped me understand the language, but it was always almost from the off was business development, because I ran a little team and was an account manager for a short period, and then it moved directly into bidding and capture from probably 2 years into my time there, albeit at the very beginning I didn't actually know that there was such a thing as bid management that I was starting to do.
Perfect. And how long have you been hands-on working in bids and proposals? And do you have any interesting proposal effort that comes into mind?
Okay, so basically that entire duration, I guess that's 17 years, 18 years of the Arqiva, and since then, so the additional 2 years since I left in 2019, I guess I covered a couple of kind of like big old projects there. I think a couple of others, maybe 3 other smaller but equally interesting kind of projects were bidding into Ofcom to kind of keep looking after spectrum. That was a kind of a small scale thing. A more recent thing that kind of plays to the innovation game is actually just getting my years right. This is 2021, so it's last year, 2020. The government had funding to impart to people to do 5G kind of trials, tools and test beds thing. So there's 5G creators where they're kind of part funding projects, and I supported one of the applicants for match funding for that, a television production company who brought me in to help them to apply for money to test 5G for extreme sports. It's now out in the public domain, so they're checking out things like I think caving and mountain climbing on the coast, etc., using 5G technology to edit and backhaul the content very quickly for television production, which is really cool.
Wow. Innovation funding. Can you talk us through a little bit about the uniqueness of that particular sector and what do you exactly do on that particular thing, Mark?
So two things here. I think the example that I just gave is kind of part of that. It's where the government or an agent of the government, because it might be a government department from which money cascades down into the likes of catapults or to government departments or UK 5G or the knowledge transfer networks, or Innovate UK is an entity as well where money has been allocated to try to galvanize technologies in general. And this was true before COVID, but there's been maybe an escalation or a refocus with COVID. But it's trying to allow the state to assist sectors and galvanize them in exploring new technologies or applications for technology. So the 5G Create one was one such, the DCMS. As I say, Innovate UK may pass by via catapults or via other agents, or Innovate UK give out money to people to apply for money for funds to explore particular cool ideas they might have.
Perfect. Wow, that's a very interesting background that you have, Mark. From all the way to electronics to telecoms, and just bringing that back to bids and proposals, and now applying that to innovation funding. It's an all-round there. Thank you, Mark. At what point of your career did you come across APMP, and when did you become a member of APMP?
It was bizarre that probably like a lot of people, I'd done it a bit before I really discovered it. I employed a team member who decided she wanted to go on a course and discover there was such a thing as the APMP and such a thing as the foundation membership. I can't remember exactly when that happened, but I flushed out my own foundation certificate, which is on the wall here, and I got that in June 2008. So I think I probably discovered the APMP maybe 6 months before that and decided it was too useful to ignore and helpful to underpin what I found myself doing. So I've been involved since at least the beginning of 2008.
Got it. Wow, 2008, that's like 13 years of being a member. And you also associated yourself with the board, taking up wider roles and also volunteering and other things. Can you share some of your memories from very early on, 2008 to so far, 2021, being a mentor?
Okay, so I've not had the activities that I'm engaged in with the APMP is probably a little bit sort of less direct, but the few things that I have done, I managed to arrange a couple of I was quite pleased with the efficacy of the events that I managed to arrange in Archiva as chapter events. I got Tony Birch, our good friend Tony Birch, and I was just remembered before I came in, that was really a great event. He managed to do pricing to win as a game, and we both know he's a very generous individual, and he ended up needing to have little bits of paper generated as notes, which had me on them. So the tokens that people were buying to engage in the game to learn about pricing were Whitley currency, so that was really cool. Also Andy Bones, and we had Tom Sant, so I had some kind of nice big names come and actually present in the canteen at Archiva in Winchester, which was really nice. Presented two times at kind of UK conferences. I haven't been lucky enough to travel abroad. Maybe I'll get to go to Amsterdam this year. Didn't go last year. We'll see what happens there. I haven't been to the States. Kind of quite a few I guess chapter events, and as you mentioned, I'm now in the second cohort of mentors, the APM mentoring group, supporting people in their aspirations to be bid and proposal professionals.
Yes, thank you, and say hello to your dog as well. The background.
Yes, hopefully go away. Okay, yes, indeed.
It's that's what makes the podcast much more interesting, how we all are doing our work with whatever the limitations or the people that we have around us is beautiful. Thank you for sharing that, Mark. So have you attended any events outside UK or any specific BitCons or UK chapter conferences that comes to your mind?
All of the ones that I've been to have been in the UK. I think this last year when they became virtual, I did think about a couple of maybe my two favorite kind of talks. Would that work for you, Bhaskar?
Oh, sure.
So definitely two kind of favorite talks that, and there've been many good ones, but during the kind of UK conferences, which is where you get, I guess, the big kind of keynotes. But I was really keen and traz by Clive Woodward, who, for those that don't know, is a kind of like England rugby player. Kind of got to admit, not my team of choice. I'm a Scotland fan, but you got to admit he did pretty well. Won the World Cup one time and stuff. But a coach and Olympian, but he came and talked about a variety of kind of almost team management and how sport management, sport and team management can be relevant in business and to bidding, and it was. So he had some sort of like lovely kind of war stories from his experience in sport and managing big events. So he was cool, and that was great from a management and group organization perspective. The other guy who's really cool is David Magliano. He was again a sort of sporting competitive thing, but more from a strategy and presentation and capture perspective, I think. And he was the guy that was masterminded the success in bringing the Olympics to London in 2012. I met him a couple of times, so that was probably my two top actual talks at events. And as I kind of say, I hope that maybe in this year or subsequently I'll actually make it to some more of the international things physically. Be great.
Wow, that's nice. So we talked a lot about your career and then touched about how you kind of adapted yourself over the years and also about APMP. As seed into our Nutters round or the rapid random fire questions round, tell us 3 things not many people know about you, Mark.
Okay. I don't try to hide things. I think it's probably stuff from my dim and distant past tends to be things I don't think folk know about. So the 3 I managed to think up was I have actually run one marathon, which is quite bizarre because I'm happier walking dogs and don't really like running very far distances. So when I was at university, I did the Glasgow Marathon when there was one. Again, when I was at university, I was roped into climbing Mont Blanc in Chamonix, the highest mountain in Europe. I think the strangest thing was that you ended up with these 4 guys halfway up the mountain working out from first principle how we should actually be roping ourselves together, because we realized what we were doing was probably not safe, but that was cool, and trying to rush down before the snow melted the next day. So that was fun, but that's something I don't think too many people know. And the last thing I kind of came up with is I'm probably really a Geordie, though I self-identify as Scottish and was born and brought up there. Most of my family is actually from the northeast of England, and my dad and mum moved up there so my dad could get the job that I described at the beginning. So there's 3 things to have fun with.
That's a lot of unknown factors, because as you rightly said, we were connected for LinkedIn for a long time, but as like people say, LinkedIn friend, Facebook friend, but when you actually put people in front, have a conversation, you realize how much you don't know about the person. Definitely, Mark. Thanks for sharing, Mark. And over to Ashley, who's just going to go a little bit more about the hobbies and interests and the rest of the episode. Thank you, Mark.
Mark, wow, what an amazing career, and so interesting the different things that you have done over the years, rockets and lasers, and it's crazy. I understand that you have a wonderful family that you love spending time with. Can you tell us a little bit about them and the things that you enjoy doing with your son and daughter?
Absolutely. And in fact, I think it was probably 2 years ago, I kind of took the conscious decision to kind of just make sure that I made sure that all of them got separate time, as well as us having kind of positive individual kind of group time together as well. So in the order that I jotted it down, I have a daughter who is 20. She's studying fine art and psychology, and I use her as an excuse to get to go and visit galleries. art galleries.
Ooh, yeah.
So yeah, so she did A-level art, then she did a diploma. Now she's doing the degree, so we're not getting out to do that so much, but we do plan kind of a day or 2 days together and kind of drag her usually to London, because we're within striking distance of the great range of galleries that are down there, and go and nail the venues that seem to fit in with the projects that she's been allocated. So we've been to some nice places there. That's kind of a real kind of good excuse to go and do that with her. My son, he'll be 15 this summer, and he's probably sprouted up a good foot and a bit more over the lockdown period. So I think the dynamic in team sports and exercise will be changed a little bit more. He's the man who's going to knock me down now, and I can't outrun him anymore. So watching and playing team sports with him is probably what we did. I did kind of coach rugby. I think you mentioned that earlier. I was the coach of his rugby team. Before that, he moved on to basketball, which I'm less good at. But we do like to go down to, so far, Twickenham and see the Barbarians or other international kind of teams play, and catch up on the Six Nations when it's on the telly. And I'm kind of hoping I might be able to drag him up to Edinburgh and see some of the autumn internationals where Scotland play. Where you'll probably just look at me while I'm supporting Scotland, and he doesn't care so much. I escaped from these guys, and one of the reasons I'm so familiar with the fine work that you guys done is I've been discovering kind of podcasts. So I've got earpods, and off I go with Ralph, our dog, who you met earlier, able to roam over the fields. We're lucky to be in a quite rural situation, and go off and listen to things while having Ralph kind of roam over the fields. And I think the last but absolutely not least is my wife, Lee. We haven't had a chance to go out and have some nice food recently. We're fondly remembering at the early part of last year, we had a kind of a city break to Brighton, which we don't hope to do. That was the last time we got out, really. So looking forward to be able to leave our more independent children and go off and spend quality time together in that way.
Yeah, I can imagine. So you like to enjoy some fine dining with your wife. Where are you going to go when that's an option again? What's the first place you think you'll enjoy?
So the one I had in mind that's handiest, there's a place called The Cross in Kenilworth, which will mean nothing to anybody, but Kenilworth is just across the border in Warwickshire. So it's kind of half an hour away. Really nice place. That's much like, look it up. The Cross in Kenilworth.
Yeah.
So I think, because sooner rather than later, probably want to go somewhere nearer, and then we'll see what happens when it's possible to travel internationally, or even to London or other bigger cities, or indeed kind of some nice places in the countryside where you can eat too. But that's near enough to be easily accessible. I know it to be good. Doesn't involve kind of like major travel effort.
Yeah, sounds lovely. All right. So we're going to move into our more kind of random rapid fire round.
Okay.
Don't think too hard about the questions, no right or wrong. So here we'll go. If you could pick a new first name, what would it be and why?
I'm actually pretty happy with Mark. Why would I need a new name? No, that's unhelpful. If I was forced to, George. Why? I have no idea. It just sprang into my head. Sounds sufficiently like it's got good gravitas. It's kind of well known. Yeah, that'll do.
Yep, I like it.
What to say? Next.
How do you think your life would change if you didn't need to sleep? And what would you do with all that extra time?
Ooh, right. So I think the thing that one of the main things I'd use that time to do is catch up on the listening, reading, and watching that I've found that difficult to fit in. I kind of made a conscious effort a year and a half ago, because my kids always get me into trouble and say, you never watch a film, Dad, you don't sit down and watch a film, or I tend not to binge watch television programs. And like I say, I've been discovering loads of lovely material on podcasts when I've been walking the dog. So if there were extra time at night, I'd be able to watch things where, as I say, 18 months ago, I decided I was going to watch all of Peaky Blinders and that I would work my way systematically. I would work my way systematically through the delightful, cheerful tale that is Game of Thrones. And whatever else was going on, there was kind of rich and dynamic stories. So I think I'd find loads of movies, get recommendations, and watch loads of those, and listen to more podcasts, and occasionally read actual books too.
Yes, yes, I totally agree. So do you have a favorite Peaky Blinders character?
Oh gosh, yes, I should remember his name. He's the, for want of a better phrase, it's the Jewish chap.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Is it Arthur, maybe? Is that his name?
Yeah, comes with it. It will come with age eventually, actually. But yes, not Jacobs. Anyway, yes. So it's the guy that's looking after, well, because they're obviously tribes. So you've got the kind of pikey, brummy guys, as they're called, and you've got the Italians, and you've got the Jewish crew. So it's him.
Yeah, he's a great character.
Indeed. I didn't realize it, but the actor was in Venom. So again, we ended up watching Venom at the weekend at my children's behest. And I thought, I recognize him, and it was the same actor.
Wow. Yeah, he's great. So if Jurassic Park were real, would you visit it?
Yes.
And what would be your favorite part, do you think, of Jurassic Park?
I think escaping with my life.
Yes, yes. Do you have a favorite dinosaur?
Oh gosh, right. I guess it depends what I want it for. So I think the T-Rexes would be my favorite if I wanted a security guard. No, that's the Velociraptor. Let's get them right. It's the Velociraptors. They're the security guards, the vicious little ones.
Yes.
I think Triceratops are a little bit more kind of interesting and characterful. So I think those are kind of two different kind of motivators depending on what I wanted the dinosaur for.
Yes, yes, definitely. Do you have plans to celebrate your next birthday?
Yes, not in detail, but I must admit I'm now starting to plan a variety of things out. So my birthday is in early August. Last summer, so we were in lockdown, but my mum was able to come down and we had a great time on our patio with a kind of a barbecue in the back garden. So it's possible that we might sort of bookend rather the kind of period by replicating that again. So that's the thing I have in my mind. I think I'd like to do something with kind of friends who are able to visit in the back garden in the summer with the barbecue.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Do you have a best friend?
I remember having this debate with people at university, and there was this question about, do men have best friends? And we were asked this question at work. I think there was a sort of inclusive thing. I tend to think not. I think I have a few good friends, but probably not a best friend, apart of course from my wife, who has a very special kind of place in my dynamic.
That's lovely. That's a great answer. What is the most difficult challenge thus far in your life?
You know what, I tend to try not to think about things as challenges. That's a bit kind of corny. What has been the challenge? But since we're out there, probably, I'll kind of share this. One of the things is my daughter Naomi has cystic fibrosis, and then subsequently, not directly as a result, but she ended up becoming deaf. So I think it's an ongoing challenge of dealing with those two ongoing things rather than anything very specific, one specific event. But it's that environment has probably been the kind of ongoing challenge.
Oh, definitely. Wow. If you were stranded on a desert island, what 3 items would you take with you?
Okay, a penknife, probably a telescope that I could take apart, but because that would be very, very, very useful. And if it's allowed to be the one thing, writing and drawing equipment, so maybe a notebook and pens.
Nice. What secret society would you like to start?
So I've heard this one, and I'm not a fan of secret societies. I think societies that are secret are always something that make me suspicious. So I would want it to be the open to anybody secret society, because the very idea of a society that is secret troubles me.
I love it. If you were arrested with no explanation, what would your friends and family assume that you had done?
I'd had a haircut that was a front to humanity.
If you were a cake, which would you be?
A fruitcake.
If you had to be a teacher of something, what would you teach?
I'm finding myself teaching my son chemistry quite a lot. What else could I teach? That's working out okay, but is that the one that I would choose? Let's go with that, because it's working out. Chemistry. My dad was a chemist. My dad actually was a chemist. He was a radio chemist.
Wow.
He had his own nuclear reactor in East Kilbride for a while. I'd say his own. He shared it with people.
Wow. So that scientific, technical mind runs in the family, it sounds like.
Yeah.
So looking back on your career and your life, who are the individuals who have been the most influential?
So I think segmenting out, I think there's the kind of life, you touched on it, and I guess I've kind of signaled it by mentioning my dad already. So my dad had kind of a great kind of enthusiasm, curiosity, not just in scientific stuff, which influenced my initial studies, but I guess he liked all different types of music. He rode and he walked and stuff like that. So that had an impact on my kind of initial direction of travel and the attitude to things. So I think that would be one. Professionally, I guess there's a range of people, but I think the one I kind of tee out is a guy called Paul Warminger, who I had dealings with at Arqiva. And I learned a lot about attention to detail, kind of self-discipline, and a kind of gravitas in a professional environment. So I think are the two individuals I'd like to call out.
Oh, that's great. What have you observed lately that reminded you that people are good?
Definitely the sort of ad hoc creation of communities in the sort of new environment. And here I'd particularly like to call out, for those who aren't aware of it, I know that there's the Thursday Throng, I think originated by Vicky Jackson, then taken on by Pippa Birch. So that's an example where people have said, I and others probably could do with a bit of a helping hand, a place to moan or cry or seek advice. So the Thursday Throng and then Bid Bites is an environment where that happened, and I've seen that elsewhere. So within the village I lived, kind of vigorous use of kind of WhatsApp groups to kind of help people out, share stuff, and provide material, and with other kind of communities that I'm aware of. So I think it's that people using technology and reaching out. Not everybody, as in all cases. There's people who are active and make these things kind of work, and others who use it, and those who, frankly, in other instances are less helpful. But definitely self-forming support groups in a variety of areas are definitely a sign for optimism, I think.
Absolutely. What is one personal trait that you like most about yourself?
Modesty. No. What one personal trait? Probably keeping on swimming. And my wife said this about me before. If you know, is it Finding Nemo? You've got the statement of kind of keep on swimming. So I think I kind of don't let myself ever give up, and just pick myself up and continue. I think is probably the useful thing.
Absolutely. That grit and that perseverance is such a critical personality trait in our business, for sure. Who is the kindest person you know?
Quite a few. I was thinking this through, and I'm going to call my son Noah, actually, because he is a teenager, and I'm not going to pretend that means all the sweetness and light at every juncture. But given my daughter's kind of illnesses, she was kind of on the kind of the list of people who needed to shield in the UK, and Noah, I think, has done a very good job of supporting that shielding, despite his desire maybe to go out and see some mates a little bit more than others. So I think he's been quite protective of his older sister in general, and particularly against his own kind of best interests at times in this situation. So I'm going to give him the prize for that.
Yeah, that's so heartwarming. And, you know, I know it's tough for teenagers, and so nice that he's putting his sister above, you know, himself.
Yes.
So looking back on your career, is there one thing you wish you had known when you kind of started off into, you know, the world of working?
Yes, probably how useful it would have been to learn how to touch type. I can't touch type really efficiently, and I think the people who can find it immeasurably useful. So I kind of regret that that's something that I can't do.
I wonder if that's something you could go back and still learn, though.
Yeah, good challenge there, Ashley. Absolutely. So I think I'm perpetually optimistic that voice recognition software will make it unnecessary, and it never quite succeeds. So yeah, maybe I should, but I haven't. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. If only you didn't need to sleep, you'd have the time for that, right?
Yeah. I think we've already established I'm watching films at that point. So
yes. So what is the best piece of advice you've received, and who gave it to you?
So one of my mentors, a guy called David Rankin, who was a Warwick Business School chap, and he was kind of suggesting, don't just do it because someone else thinks it's what you should be doing. So it's an element of introduce maybe a little bit more self-interest and self-awareness than you might have. So don't do it just because someone else tells you absolutely what you should be doing. Necessarily.
Such great advice. Absolutely. So what's next for you? What are you looking forward to in the future?
Okay, so I think I'm doing a bit of mentoring. I'm kind of exploring a bit of a kind of portfolio existence with that innovation kind of space, and doing the mentoring stuff, and see if I can end up do a bit more of that in a variety of areas. So that's it professionally, but I'm also, I think, looking forward to things that aren't work. Quite a few people seem to be doing open water swimming, which sounds like a fantastic thing to do. Maybe slightly less impact on my aging body than five-a-side, which I used to play, or touch rugby. So I don't know if I'm too old for that, but if I'm not, I might try them. But definitely open water swimming. And I've got my uncle who lives in the northeast. He's quite keen to go and walk on through the Great Glen in Scotland. So I'm trying to expand that so that it's kind of a group. There's an element of support there. He's 80 something, so he could probably do with some support. It means it maybe won't be as fast, but it may be a good opportunity for me, my son, and my uncle, and whoever else wants to go, to have a bit of an expedition in the Highlands, which would be great.
Absolutely. Sounds like a really fun trip for sure. Mark, is there anything about your life or career that you had hoped to touch upon today that we haven't tackled?
No, I think okay, that'll be Ralph.
Ralph wanted to get a few more words in, it sounds like.
Yeah, I think Noah's trying to get him out of the way. However, in answer to you, we'll see if the noise goes away enough, but I'll try and answer the question nonetheless. No, I think you've probably managed to explore it and interrogate it pretty comprehensively. Thank you very much.
Well, Mark, thank you so much for your time today. It really has been a privilege to have you with us at Scribble Talk. We wish you all the good health and happiness. Please do continue to inspire bid and proposal industry colleagues and everyone else around you. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay sane.
And yourselves. Thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you, Mark.
To our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. Please visit baachuscribble.com/podcast to listen to this episode and check out any of our other previously recorded episodes. If you've enjoyed today's interview, don't forget to subscribe, review, and share the Scribble Talk podcast. We hope you'll check out our next episode where we interview another industry expert and special guest. Until then, it's Ashley Kays
Bhaskar Sundaram
signing off.